3 years ago, the girl I loved disappeared beneath this tree, but every sunset, the swing still moves by itself. And tonight, she came back. Sometimes love doesn't end. Sometimes it simply waits, in places where time forgets how to move. There are trees that remember human voices. There are shores where the ocean keeps secrets. And there are sunsets after which a person is never the same again. Mark learned that too late. That evening, the sky looked unreal, deep turquoise with streaks of burning crimson clouds. The sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon while an old swing beneath a giant tree creaked softly on its own, even though there was almost no wind. Mark sat nearby, staring at it as if he were afraid to blink, because sometimes she appeared there. 3 years earlier, Mark first met Leah in a tiny coffee shop by the sea. She sat near the window sketching something in a worn notebook. Her hair was still damp from the rain, and a cold cup of coffee rested beside her. Mark had only recently returned to his hometown after years in New York. After his father's death, he sold his apartment, left his photography career behind, and came back to the one place where he had once felt happy. But happiness no longer lived inside him, only exhaustion. As he walked past her table, the girl suddenly spoke. "You think about the past too much." Mark stopped. "Excuse me?" She looked up and smiled softly. "You have the eyes of someone who doesn't live in the present. And you talk to strangers, often." She laughed quietly. "Sometimes strangers appear in dreams before they appear in real life." Mark almost smiled. Then he noticed her sketchbook. It was him. The same profile, the same jacket, even the scar near his eyebrow. A chill crawled down his spine. "How did you know what I looked like?" Leah shrugged. "Sometimes I dream about people before I meet them." "What are you, psychic?" "No," she whispered. "I just listen to the ocean too much." And somehow, he sat down across from her. Over the following weeks, they became inseparable. Leah showed Mark forgotten places around town, the abandoned pier, hidden trails near the cliffs, the old lighthouse standing above the crashing waves. But her favorite place was always a hill overlooking the sea. At the top stood a massive tree with dark twisting branches, and beneath it hung an old wooden swing. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Leah asked one evening as the sunset painted the sky gold and blue. "More creepy than beautiful. That's exactly why I love it." She sat on the swing and slowly drifted back and forth. The fading sunlight wrapped around her silhouette like fire. "Locals call this the whispering tree," she said. "They believe you can hear the voices of people you've lost here." "And you actually believe that?" Leah stared at the horizon. "Sometimes the world is thinner than we think." Mark laughed softly. "You always talk like a mystery novel. Only when I'm afraid to tell the truth." "And what truth is that?" She hesitated, then quietly answered. "Some people enter your life for a short time, but stay forever." For the first time, Mark felt afraid, as if time itself behaved differently around her. By autumn, storms rolled into the town, and Leah began to change. Sometimes she would stop speaking mid-sentence, listening to something far away. Other nights, she woke trembling from nightmares. One evening, Mark found her standing barefoot near the freezing shoreline. "Are you crazy?" he shouted over the wind. "You're freezing." She didn't turn around. "They're calling me again." "Who?" Slowly, she faced him. Fear filled her eyes. "The ocean." Mark forced a nervous laugh. "Leah, no, listen to me. Have you ever noticed how the sea sounds at night? Sometimes there are voices inside the waves. That's just the water." "No." She stepped closer. "When I was 10 years old, I almost drowned near these cliffs." Mark froze. "What?" "They found me on the beach the next morning, alive, but after that, everything changed. The wind grew colder. Sometimes I see people who are gone, sometimes I hear them in dreams, and sometimes..." Her voice trembled. Sometimes I feel like a part of me never came back from the ocean. Mark pulled her into his arms. You're exhausted, but deep inside, he feared she might be telling the truth. It happened near the end of October. A violent storm swallowed the town. Power lines failed. The ocean slammed against the cliffs like something alive. Late that night, Leia arrived at Mark's house, pale, terrified. Come with me. Now, please. Without another word, they drove to the hill beneath the whispering tree. The swing was moving by itself. Even though the air was still, Leah's hands trembled. Tonight the boundary opens again. What boundary? She looked directly into his eyes. The one between the lost and the living. Mark's stomach tightened. You're scaring me. Then a voice whispered through the darkness. Leah. Mark spun around. Nobody. But the voice came again. Closer this time. Leah. The swing creaked louder, and suddenly the shadows around the tree began to move. Human shapes, blurry figures standing silently between the branches. Watching them, Mark's heartbeat pounded in his ears. What are they? Leah grabbed his arm. They came for me. A violent gust of wind exploded across the hill. Mark shielded his eyes for 1 second, and when he looked again, Leah was gone. They searched for months. Police combed the cliffs. Divers searched the shoreline. But all they found was Leah's scarf beneath the tree. The town assumed she had drowned, but Mark never believed it, because every night he dreamed the same dream. Leah sitting on the swing above the ocean, whispering, You let me go too soon. He woke up drenched in sweat and drove to the hill almost every night. Sometimes he heard laughter behind him, sometimes footsteps, and once he saw her silhouette beneath the tree. But when he ran closer, nobody was there. People in town began calling him crazy. Only the old lighthouse keeper understood. One night, the old man quietly said, If you love someone deeply enough, some doors begin to open. The keeper's name was Elias. He had lived beside the lighthouse for over 40 years. One stormy night, Mark finally asked him, Do you know what happened to Leah? Elias stayed silent for a long time. Then he pulled out an old photograph. A young woman smiled back from the faded picture. She looked almost exactly like Leah. That was my wife, Elias whispered. She disappeared near that tree in 1981. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. What? Some places don't let people go, Elias said, especially those who once stood between life and death. Leah almost drowned when she was a child. Elias nodded slowly. The ocean marked her. Lightning flashed outside the lighthouse windows. In certain sunsets, the old man continued, the boundary becomes thin, and sometimes the lost return. Return? Mark whispered. So she's alive. Elias looked toward the crashing sea. Not exactly. The following evening, Mark climbed the hill again. The sky looked exactly like it had 3 years earlier. Turquoise, crimson, unreal. The swing moved slowly in the fading light. And then, she appeared. Mark stopped breathing. Leah. She looked almost the same, only paler, almost transparent beneath the sunset. Mark. His voice shook. Is it really you? She smiled through tears. For me, only a few days have passed. I searched for you for 3 years. Time moves differently here. The ocean roared below the cliffs. Birds burst from the branches overhead. Leah stepped closer. Tonight, the boundary opens again. Come back with me. She shook her head. I can't. Why? Tears streamed down her face. Because this place never lets anyone leave for free. She took his hand. Her skin was ice cold. But you could stay. The world seemed to stop. What? If you stay until midnight, There will be no way back. Mark looked into her eyes and realized he was ready to say yes, because life without her had stopped feeling like life long ago. The wind screamed through the trees. The shadows moved again. Mark heard whispers everywhere, hundreds of voices calling his name. Leah was crying. I don't want to take you away from your life. Then why ask me to stay? Because I don't know how to let you go. Those words shattered him. He held her tightly. For the first time in 3 years, he felt warmth again, even if it was only a ghost of it. If I leave, what happens to you? Leah looked towards the ocean. I remain here, between worlds, forever. She never answered, and Mark understood. If he stayed, they would finally be together again, but no longer belong to the living world. In the distance, the lighthouse bell began striking midnight. 1, 2, 3. Leah closed her eyes. Choose. Tears filled Mark's eyes, and suddenly he remembered something his mother once told him. Real love doesn't ask you to die beside it. Slowly, he let go of Leah's hand. She opened her eyes and smiled sadly, but peacefully. You're free now, she whispered. Mark was crying. I'll never forget you. You don't have to. The swing suddenly swayed harder. The wind stopped, and Leah's silhouette slowly dissolved into the night air. When you hear the ocean at sunset, she whispered, know that I'm still near. And then she disappeared, ending. A year passed. Mark started taking photographs again, traveling again, living again. But every autumn he returned to the hill beneath the whispering tree. Sometimes the swing moved on its own. Sometimes the wind carried the sound of soft laughter. And one evening, he found a fresh sketch resting on the swing, a drawing of himself. At the bottom were only a few words. Love never disappears. It simply learns how to live between worlds. And for the first time in years, Mark smiled without pain.
Thank you for listening to my story to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Watch it to the end and see the finished painting, which I also painted.